Hello, Gaia. How are you doing today?
Hello, all good, all good. How are you?
Good. I'm very good. I'm excited for this. I'm excited to learn and to find out more, and hopefully our young people are as well.
Yeah, it is a massive topic, so I hope I'm going to be able to, just squeeze it in the 20 minutes, 25 minutes that I have at my disposal. Maybe just a quick introduction about myself. I am Italian, as you might hear from the accent, don't that might come through during the presentation. I've worked in as a product developer in cosmetics for the past I don't even know how many years, maybe 8 or 9. I worked in Italy for a couple of manufacturing companies, mainly for makeup cosmetics, makeup products. And then I moved to London, where I worked for a different brand for 3 years before I joined Indu last year to, develop the brand and get it to launch. So today we're going to go through, how beauty products are created and developed. As I said, it's quite a broad topic, but I'm going to talk you through the main items. So working in a cosmetic business is quite interesting and can be covered from very different departments. Of course, there's new product development that you might find sometimes out there, when you look for a job as NPD. We create the product from concept to physical item, but we don't work alone. We work with several different other departments. The main for me are regulatory, that make sure that the product is compliant for every market that we sell the product to. That means that from a formula perspective, so the ingredient has to respond to the regulations of each and every country we sell to, but also the labeling. So you'll see later in the presentation that every product has some copy written on the primary pack or the cartons they're sold into, and every single thing you put on the product itself has to comply to some regulations. And regulatory does all of these, very interesting part of the job. I also work very closely with operations, which make sure that the product is manufactured in time within the cost that we had forecasted at the beginning. And then we work really closely with marketing. Marketing is basically, to the words of our head of marketing, is the gold dust that makes you want to buy a product. So, they create the campaigns, they work on the photo shoots, and all of these interesting, more creative part of the job that that take the product to market. And then, of course, there's a whole infrastructure of website apps that we need to have in place to be able to sell the products. And this is where tech and web come in place. There's many more departments, but those are the main ones that, collate product development to the finished product and how you're able to purchase it. You will see here something a little bit more technical, but I wanted to just give you an idea of how long it takes to develop a product. I like to work with a process that it's called stage and gate. You've probably seen it or heard of it in your studies, but it's basically a process that makes sure that every decision is made before you can go on to the next stage of the development. In NPD, we have 6 stages and 6 gates that you can basically follow along the life cycle of the development of a project. It can take from 8 months to 24 months, depending how complex a project is and how many new things you are developing. So let's say to launch, a simple blue eyeshadow, it might take 8 months because it's a fairly simple development. But if you're developing a new, skincare range with a new customized packaging, that might take up to 24 months. At Indu, what is very interesting is that we also have an internal committee of 260 to 170 people. Lulu might, correct me at the end of the presentation with the right number, but they are very much involved in shaping our product development. So sure that the product that we develop respond to the real needs of our committee. We are a brand that sells product to teenagers, so exactly your age range, and we want to make sure that we don't just launch any product, but that we launch products that are responding to your needs. I'm not going to go through every single stage because it's quite a lengthy process, but every project goes through. The simpler version of this is that at the beginning of the project, we highlight an opportunity. So, we may have a gap in our range or products that are being, extremely successful on the market, and we want to, tap into those, but make it different. Once we have decided that we are ready to pursue that specific product, we write then the brief, and then we go out to laboratory and packaging suppliers to develop our formulations and our packaging. And then once we have approved the formula, the packaging, the look of it, we go into testing to make sure that the products are safe and they are efficacious, so that the formulas actually work. And then we collate all of our product information and we go into the manufacturing side. And that's where, the marketing comes in creating the campaign, the photo shoot, the messaging behind it. And then, hopefully we are ready to launch. A cosmetic product is not just, you see it on the shelf in a store and it just, looks pretty, but sometimes people don't realize that there's so many parts to a product. We start off, of course, by having a concept, an idea. As I said in the slide before, we look at the new opportunity. We make it Indu-like. We want to make sure that it fits into the concept and that it can translate nicely to our audience. Of course, the product is made of the formula, which is the most important part of the product itself. In our case, we want it to be unique. We want it to be functional. We want to make sure that it works. And then we have packaging, which is the thing that drives you to buy a product. Sometimes, when the packaging is pretty, you are more willing to get closer, to try it, to enjoy it. One of the important part that I mentioned a little bit before is the labeling. So, what regulatory information we need to have based on the laws and regulations of every single country that it's sold into. And then, of course, we have the efficacy and safety testing, which makes sure that, again, the product is safe, is tested, and that it's efficacious. Sometimes you can do user trials, you can have real people try the product, but sometimes for other kind of testing, you need to go to an independent laboratory to make sure that they can control every single phase of testing and come back with the real results. In NPD, it is important also not just to know what a product is made of, but also have innovation pillars. So every single brand will have different innovation pillars here. I have put the pillars that Indu uses for the development of all of our products. We want to make sure that we consistently go back to look at these innovation pillars and always make sure that the products we develop include all of the innovation pillars. We don't, we can't launch products that don't respond to these pillars. So in our case, we try and respond to teen needs. We want fun and elevated products that work. We want to be inclusive, personalized, and customizable. We want to keep an eye out on sustainability because, of course, sustainability is very important in this age. And then we want to make sure that we develop exclusive products that teens like. Here you see a little bit of the map of the world. I just wanted to show you where, ingredients and packaging come from, and also where our finished product come from. So you can see that ingredients can come from all sorts of parts of the world, from the Far East to the US to Europe. Our packaging comes from China and Korea, but also from Malta and from the UK. And the ingredients and the packaging is sent to our formula manufacturers in Italy, in Poland, and in the UK. And this is where our products are manufactured, assembled, and they get ready to be distributed out to our customers. People don't really realize that sometimes the supply chain of a cosmetic brand or a cosmetic product can be quite complicated and complex. But yeah, this is a simplified version of what we try and move from all around the world. As I was saying in the slide before, our ingredients come from a little bit all over the world, but there are different kinds of ingredients that we can choose to develop our products. The main ones are these 5 that you see on the screen. At Indu, we have decided to give priority to botanical ingredients because botanicals, while they are very efficacious and they work, they are also the most delicate on teen skin. So we decided to give priority to that. If you don't know what botanicals means, it means that ingredients come from plants or flowers. So we try and utilize, the nature to add into our ingredients. There are also mineral ingredients. Mineral comes from rocks, generally. Some of the main ones you will find are pigments, for example, in lipsticks, eyeshadows, but also in mascaras and foundations. Some of the main ingredients that will be the main pigments that will be used come from the earth, really. There are also animal-derived ingredients, which personally at Indu we don't use because we've decided to be a vegan brand. But there are very high-quality ingredients that are animal-derived. If you think about, honey or milk, or there's a red pigments that come from a little bug. So yeah, we don't use it, but just as an FYI, you will. If you start working in cosmetics or in cosmetic science, you will find animal-derived ingredients, and they are an option. There are also several different kind of synthetic ingredients that are very good at keeping formulas together. Mainly, I would like to refer to silicons that sometimes are bashed on when you hear about silicons in cosmetics, people get a little scared, but actually synthetic ingredients are quite functional. So, you will find them in cosmetics and you will find them also in our products. Silicons are very modern synthetic ingredients, but specifically silicons, because you will find a whole lot of them in cosmetics, are very functional. In the past, they were maybe a little less not safe to use, but they were not as popular, let's say. But innovation has done a lot for this category, specifically of ingredient, and everything that is used in cosmetics is safe and has been tested. The last category that I would like to talk to you about today is biotech ingredients. So biotech means that laboratory takes what they find in nature and try to replicate them in a laboratory and make sure that they can then scale up the production in in bigger sizes. They want to do so because they want to preserve natural resources. So biotech is actually probably the most sustainable of these categories. We do have some biotech ingredients in our formulas as well, because we want to make sure that while we are using, the powerful resources from nature, we are also able to, respect nature and don't abuse it. Next, I would like to talk to you about how a cosmetic product is made. I think of it, and I always try to describe it as making a cake. Imagine yourself being in the kitchen. You have an ingredient list, which if you have seen a cosmetic product before, you will see an ingredient list on the carton or on the bottle of your creams and tonics and stuff. And then you have a recipe that you have to follow to make up your cake or your your little lollipops or whatever. It is, I like to describe it as that because it's the simpler way that you can describe it. You follow a recipe step by step. You have an ingredient list that without any of the ingredients, the final product wouldn't come out. And you have to follow different steps and different stages to bake that cake. In cosmetic science and in the laboratory, these steps are called phases. At different phases, you will mix up different ingredients at different temperatures sometimes. At every step of the way, you have quality inspection. Imagine yourself trying, the dough of your cake before you bake it to make sure that, it tastes nice. So this is exactly what happens in a laboratory. Of course, everything is made in a very sterile way. But, the analogy of you being in the kitchen to me is very fitting because it follows basically the same principle. The difference is that you do you make a small batch in the laboratory in the same way you would make your little cake before you make a bigger cake for your family or friends. For cosmetics, it's basically the same. Chemists work in a lab in their little beaker with smaller batches of sometimes 300 to 500 grams, and then make sure that everything goes well to go into mass production where you produce 50 to 1,000 kilos. So you need to make sure that the process and the recipe that you followed for the smaller batch can be replicated in the mass production. I wanted to then take you through a little bit of the sustainability and safety versus sometimes greenwashing. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the term greenwashing before, but it basically means that brands talk about some terms. We'll go through some in a minute. Which don't really mean that you're being more sustainable or more safe. I have divided the screen into two sections because I personally like to describe it, to visualize it like this. But when we talk about sustainability, there are very obvious things that sustainability and safety. There are obvious things that us as a brand, but personally myself as a product development, like to take into consideration. Of course, as we said, at Indu we manufacture and we develop vegan products. So vegan, we said before, means that the formula doesn't contain any animal-derived ingredients like honey, like milk. All of our products are cruelty-free, meaning that the products have not been tested on animals. One of the things that I would like for you to keep in mind is that animal testing in Europe and in the UK is banned by law. So every European brand you will find or you will buy from, they're all cruelty-free because they are not allowed by law to test on animals. One of the main countries that still allows for cosmetics to be tested on animals is China. So every brand in Europe that want to sell in China have to test their products on animals just because the Chinese market requires it to happen. but any brand in Europe that only sells in Europe or in the US or, you know, Australia, for example, they cannot test their products on animals. So every brand is cruelty-free unless they sell in China. Recyclable and recycled is one of the other sustainability-related terms that you will hear quite often, and that means that, you know, the packaging that the formulas are sold into, they can be recycled. And recyclable means that the plastic or the glass or the aluminium that is used to create your jars or your bottles contains a percentage of what is called PCR or PIR, which are post-consumer or post-industrial recycled material. Imagine your, you know, plastic bottles for, you know, that you buy for water. They can be recycled and they can become your, you know, little pot for your cream. Allergen-free is one of the terms that you will hear sometimes. And allergens are chemicals that can be found in ingredients. They are specifically found in essential oils, or maybe one of them, more correctly, I should say, the highest amount of allergens are found in essential oils. Essential oils are, you know, derivatives from plants and flowers, for example, but they're not treated enough for the allergens to be eliminated completely. They are heavily regulated in the EU and in the UK. So, you know, the European Union and the UK governments are trying to regulate as much as possible because, of course, allergens create allergies. So you want to make sure that your products do not contain allergens, or if they do contain it, you need to claim it on the packaging. And in the greenwashing section, not that those are, you know, terms that you can't believe in, but I think it's helpful for you to always ask yourself questions. One of the main terms are clean. Sometimes brands define clean and as safer options of products or non-toxic, but actually the term clean isn't regulated by any law, by any countries in the world, and doesn't have a clear definition. Plus, every ingredient that all brands use in their products have to have been tested and allowed from you know, regulations. So every ingredient in every product is safe. So clean is a little bit of a confusing term sometimes. You just need to make sure that you ask the question, why do you say that your brand is clean? What are the ingredients that you don't use, and why don't you use them? The other term is biodegradable. In this day and age, you know, sustainability is very important. So a lot of brands will say that a product or a component is biodegradable, but in theory, everything is biodegradable. What is important is how long it takes for anything to biodegrade, so to just not be in physical form anymore. So I guess here again, it's a way for me to say that, you know, you should be asking questions. Has the product been tested to say that is biodegradable? How long does it take for this specific, you know, bottle or jar? How long does it take for it to degrade for you to say that it's actually biodegradable? The other thing is organic and natural. On the market, especially over the past maybe 10, 15 years, organic and natural products and natural and organic brands have been quite big on the market. But I think what it's important for me to say here is that every single ingredient that you find in your formulas go through a chemical process or multiple chemical processes. So while, you know, an ingredient comes from a specific plant, it's not put in the product, you know. Imagine, you know, lemon extract. You don't squeeze a lemon in a formula to make the product. The lemon goes through multiple chemical processes to make sure that it becomes an ingredient that can be used. So while a lemon is natural and can be grown organically, so without the use of extra chemicals, it still goes through a chemical process. So what I think my point is that even natural and organic products become chemical compounds before you put them in a formula. And I think one of the notes that I would like to close on is the cost of a product. Because you don't necessarily realize when you buy a product that you just it doesn't just entail the cost of goods, so the cost that it makes to create the product and to manufacture the product, but you have another long list of costs that companies like Indu has before they put the product on the market. So one of it, the biggest chunk here you see is the cost of goods, so the cost of the formula, the cost of the packaging, the cost to manufacture a product, but then you also have marketing cost, which is a whole department that has to create a lot of content, a lot of messaging before the product is ready to be put on the market. And then you have distribution costs. So that means that if you sell online, you have the cost of the warehouse, you have the cost of the people preparing the packages, you have the cost of sending the product out, or if you sell in retail, you have the retail costs that are quite a big chunk of the cost of distributing. Of course, you have the people that work for the brand, like myself and Lulu in the case of Indu, but we have our marketing department, we have our finance department, operations. So that also adds up to the cost of manufacturing the product. And then finally, you have the revenue. If you sell enough product to, make some revenue, that's where you are in a good position. This is everything that I wanted to talk to you about today. Now I'll leave it to Lulu.
Hey, just super quickly to add on to the end there. As Gaia said, we obviously are a teen beauty brand, so making skincare and makeup, but a huge, huge part of the brand, and obviously beyond the products and everything that Gaia's just explained, is our committee of nearly 300 teenagers. So we have, I think it's like 280 as of this morning. But yeah, we have 280 teams that work as a kind of advisory board. So every single part of the brand, from all the product development to the marketing to the website, the way we talk about the brand, all of those things has been run through a group of teams who've helped decide everything and really co-create the brand with us. We are still growing that group, and if you want to get involved, and if you're allowed to get your phones out to scan this QR code, scan the code and it will come up on the landing page, and you can learn more about that, see other ways to kind of sign up and get involved, or even just follow along on social media. But yeah, we'd love to see you guys in there if you found that kind of behind the scenes of the brand interesting, or if you're just into kind of beauty and skincare generally, then we'd love to get you involved. So feel free to scan that.
Perfect. Thank you guys for going over that. I'll keep the QR code on just a couple of seconds longer. I'll also afterwards be sending links out with a feedback form via email. So I'll include links as well and things like that in the follow-up email if you want to get more information and find that there. So don't worry that the QR code is disappearing now. Thank you for your presentation, Gaia. It's really, really interesting to listen to. Really enjoyed it. And I definitely learned some things about kind of manufacturing that I wasn't aware of before. So hopefully everyone else did too. And we've had some questions sent in, both pre-submitted and live ones today. So keep those questions rolling in and we'll keep asking them. We'll start with a really nice, easy one that's not to do with manufacturing, just to warm us up. So it comes from Burnside College, and someone from there has asked, who inspired you growing up?
Well, one of my inspirations come from high school. My Italian teacher was a very strict lady, in her 60s, very hardcore into her, language studies and literature, but one of the things that she inspired me the most with was to learn and always ask questions. Never stop at the first answer, always dig deeper. If there's something that, gives you, if someone says something that, leaves you with a little bit of doubt, you should always, ask follow-up questions. It doesn't matter how tough the conversation can become, because, you might challenge a little bit too much. Asking questions is the only way to really, form your real opinion. So never stop at the first step.
I love that. And I like that it's a teacher as well. They definitely have more of an impact on you than you realize when you're
Definitely.
younger. It's only when you left, you're like, oh yeah, that was probably
Yeah.
quite cool.
Yeah, back then it was a little bit frustrating, but then, after a couple of years, you really realize that, her teaching were, good stuff.
Okay, great. So we've had a question come in live, and I might butcher this question because there's a word in it that I have no idea how to pronounce. So I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
As a dyslexic person, you have to do that sometimes. So which ingredient is best of these three? Salicylic acid, hyaluronic acid, and the last one, which is the difficult one. I've never heard of it before, so I don't know how to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it niacinamide?
Niacinamide? Is it niacinamide?
Yeah, that one.
Well, they're all three very important ingredients. I guess it depends what kind of concerns you're trying to solve. Hyaluronic acid is good at all ages. We sometimes forget to drink and to keep our bodies hydrated. So hyaluronic acid helps us to maintain the hydration inside the skin. That doesn't mean that we can forget to drink water and to keep, our bodies healthy, but definitely hyaluronic acid is beautiful ingredients. Niacinamide is more of a modern-ish ingredient. It's kind of like a solve it all kind of ingredient. It's good for acne prone skin because it's quite delicate. It's not overly aggressive, but it's also good because it adds moisture into the skin. So it's quite I like to call it a 360 ingredient. Salicylic acid is good for, superficial exfoliation of the skin. So it depends really where you are with your skincare needs. You can use one or the three ingredients. One thing with salicylic acid, because it's slightly, gentle exfoliating, just make sure that your skin is not too sensitive and not to over exfoliate, because that might, have a reverse action or create more issues than solving them.
Definitely interesting. And thanks for whoever submitted that, because there's some very common ingredients that you see quite a lot. So it's great to hear from someone on that manufacturing side about them. Our next question then comes from Lincoln College, and they have asked two questions. So the first one is, what's the most common ingredient in beauty products?
Well, there's plenty of ingredients that you will hear of. I can maybe talk about one very common ingredient in skincare and one in color cosmetics. In skincare, you will hear glycerin all the time. Glycerin is quite a cheap ingredient, but it's one very moisturizing and super emollient. So you will probably find it in 96% of skincare products. While in color cosmetics, you have all sorts of silicons and film formers that make sure that the foundation or concealer or mascara, stay on the skin nicely and doesn't budge throughout the day. Of course, in color cosmetics, you have all the part of pigments, to give the color to the product itself. So I would say that probably silicon, film formers, and pigments are the most common in makeup.
Definitely interesting. Really, really good. Thank you for that one. The follow-up question then is, what products have the most pigment?
Everything that is full coverage. I can't really speak about one precise product because, the highest the coverage, the highest the pigment. So think about if a full coverage foundation on the market, or a one swipe color payoff lipstick, and they will have very high percentages of pigment.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering those. We have a couple more questions or so. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, so we should get a good few in. We've had this question submitted to us live, which is quite a nice one. How did you, Gaia, start your career, and what paths did you take to be doing the job that you're doing today? So to get to head of product, how did you get there? What did you do?
Yeah, my my introduction to the cosmetic industry was by mistake, in a way. I was looking for a job. I had 3 offers. They came from 3 very different industries, and I thought that why not, getting a job in color cosmetics. I started off as being a customer service and taking care of the supply chain for my accounts. I had brands I was working with from all over the world. One of my main account, I think I can talk about this because it's been so long ago now, but it was the Kendo Group that owns Fenty Cosmetics, Marc Jacobs, KVD Beauty. So I was working in taking care of the supply chain for them, and then I stepped up. There was a position in product development. I really liked to work with the laboratory. I was constantly going down in the lab, bugging them and ask them how, they had reformulated a color or formula. So that's how I really got introduced to NPD. And then I progressed. I studied a little bit of marketing. I did sales, and then when I moved to London, I went back to NPD, which is my passion. I love how physical things are made. I love to understand how one thing interacts with another. I was always very interested in that sort of thing. So my path was very different from a traditional NPD person. I guess what I should say is probably that as you can see, as you saw at the beginning of the presentation, there are so many ways that you can get involved in the cosmetic industry. You can really like marketing, and you might be a skincare user and you want to work for a brand. If you like NPD or more of the formulation side of things, then you can start from going to a cosmetic science course. There's at least a couple that I sent links that I hope will get shared after the presentation that you can look at. There's definitely good ones in London, so if you are in and around London, that's a good thing. I didn't start off as a skincare person at first, or a makeup person at first, but I really liked the supply chain of it all, and I wanted to understand more. So that was my natural progression, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy how so many people just end up in the careers that they have. Like, it's not what they set out to do. It's not what they study degrees in or aim to do when they were in college, but they happen to find an industry and they're like, oh, this is it for me. I really enjoy this. So
exactly.
Yeah. Our next question then, another one that's come in at live, is how do you determine the safety of ingredients? I know you touched a little bit this on the presentation, but I guess a little bit more. So a new ingredient comes along, how did they go, okay, this is safe?
Yeah. So worldwide, there are millions of companies that create new ingredients every day. What the ingredient manufacturing company has to do before they are able to sell this product is to go through years and years of research, years and years of testing, and then their ingredient gets submitted to the regulatory let's say offices or departments of every country, and they determine the safety. So we can't ourselves determine the safety of an ingredient. It has to go through regulations, basically. How we determine the safety of our formulas, so once the ingredients are put together, is to go to independent laboratories. They will do patch test, which means you test the product on real skin to make sure that it doesn't create any irritations. You can test it on sensitive skin if the product is At Indu, we test on sensitive skin as well, because teenage skin can be quite sensitive. So we want to make sure that every step is taken to make sure that the product that we sell is ultimately safe. But there are, you know, in the cosmetic industry, when you go through, you know, real manufacturing phases, there are so many quality control that you know, by the end of it, the product will be definitely safe. But we, as a brand, we're doing everything, you know, we go above and beyond, making sure that the products are safe. But never, we never determine it internally. We always use independent labs that, you know, will say if the product has something that isn't right, that will come back to us and say, you need to take a step back, you know, you need to go back into reformulation and take out this or that ingredient.
Yeah, so interesting for how these products gets made. It's a really, really interesting process. Just one or two more questions then. We've had this question come in from King's School, and I think it's quite an interesting one. This person wants to potentially start making products at home for a future business when they leave school. And they've asked, you know, how do you start making products at home, and what's the difference from homemade products to kind of the mass produced?
Mass manufactured, yeah. So first of all, I would suggest that you get a cosmetic science degree. I want to make sure that you have all of the foundations to know, you know, what ingredients work well together, and how a product is developed. As you could see in the presentation, you know, while I made the analogy of baking a cake, or, you know, making a small batch in your kitchen, there are so many levels of quality checks that you need to make sure you have. Making a product at home can be quite daunting, because you have to go out and about and look for, you know, distributors of these and that ingredient, or so it can be quite complicated. Definitely, you know, a complex endeavor. But I mean, props to, you know, whoever asked this question, because, you know, that means that they have a very entrepreneurial, you know, way of thinking. I guess my main concern from manufacturing small batches in, you know, in a kitchen to a mass manufactured product is that in the kitchen you don't have the same tools and devices that help you quality check your product. You know, every time a laboratory receives ingredients from their, you know, from the distributors or the manufacturers of ingredients, they go through quality checks. They are tested for microbiological contamination. So that means that they make sure that, you know, the glycerin or the vegetable, you know, and I don't know, whatever oil or ingredients is checked before they go into formulate into formulation. So I guess I wouldn't want to do it in my kitchen, but I would want to do it in a, you know, in a proper laboratory with all the safety and quality devices. That would be my only concern.
Okay, great. We'll go for one more question before we look to wrap up today's session then. And this final one at live submitted is, what is your favorite ingredient?
Favorite ingredient? Well, because I'm 36 and my skin is aging, I had to, you know, use retinol. Luckily, you guys, you know, or everybody in the audience that is 25 and under doesn't need that ingredient. Retinol just helps to maintain my skin a little bit younger, or making sure that it remains healthy throughout the course of its, you know, life cycle, I guess. But that's yeah, my favorite ingredient for now. Nobody has to rely on it if you're 25 and under. So please don't use retinol or any other retinol derivatives until you turn 26 at least.
Love it. Lulu, do you have a favorite ingredient?
Now I'm worrying as a 26-year-old that I'm not using retinol and I'm going to look old. I honestly have no skincare knowledge at all, and the crazy stuff that comes out of Gaia's mouth I learn every single day. So not currently, but I feel like I'll have to learn a new one.
I'll give you a few tips after the presentation.
Yeah, give me a little crash course.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, as we look to kind of wrap up today's session then, I'll start with you, Lulu. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Just thank you so much. Yeah, I know this is your Monday morning, so really appreciate you taking the time to listen to Gaia's presentation and hopefully learn. And yeah, as I said, and we'll share that link, and you can hopefully get involved. And we'll see you in there.
All right, and Gaia, before we end today's session, any final thoughts and feelings you'd like to share with our young people?
Yeah, I would like to, thank everybody here. I hope I, sparked a little bit of interest in the cosmetic world. Is so extensive. There's so much to learn about, so many departments or so many ways to get involved. I don't know if it's even possible, but if anybody wants to keep the conversation open, I'm happy for Charlie to get questions and follow up, and I'm more than happy to respond. I like to share as much knowledge as I can, although I'm not the massive expert in the industry, but I like to keep the door. I'd like to keep the door open if it's possible in any capacity.
Yep, all the young people have access to broadcasts at speakersforschools.org if they want to pop that email and ask any questions. And everyone who signed up will be sent the feedback form. So if they want to respond to that email with any sort of questions, I can pass on, and we can see if we can do something there if anything comes in. But thank you for both of you, spending time with us today and doing this presentation. Hopefully we see you again at some point in the future. It's been really wonderful. So thank you. Thank you both.